Today I'm going to teach you my 5 rules for animating Hollywood level camera moves. I'm going to use Unreal Engine. If you want to use a different piece of 3D software, feel free. Hey, welcome to Real Time Workflows. I'm MX Bell. I worked on Deadpool and Wolverine, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, 1917, Hobbs and Shaw, Wheel of Time, Little Mermaid, No Time to Die, tons more. What you're going to get in the channel are my pro tips and how I use Unreal Engine to make films. So let's get started. Let's make some stuff. See you down the road. Right, welcome back to Real Time Workflows. I am MX Bell and I'm going to teach you some rules that I've learned in my career. And some of them were taught to me directly and some of them are things that I've kind of arrived at just through repetitively, you know, the old 10,000 hours thing, just doing it all the time. Rule number 1, a camera only tells one story at a time. So what this means is if you pan left, don't pan right. The panning left is the camera's story. If you tilt up, you don't need to tilt back down. That's a different story. One story, one shot. Let me show you this camera that I did earlier today. So broadly speaking, this camera just moves from right to left, more or less in a straight line. It goes down the trench. It is doing some micro adjustments, but the broad story is we're following this character down this trench and we're making one broad move. Okay, it's pretty much a straight line. There is a rotation in it, obviously, and there's a few micro adjustments, but it's one broad move. One story, one move, nice and simple. Now, let me show you the first version of it. Now, that's perfectly acceptable. If I were given that, if one of my previous artists gave me that, I would be quite happy to chuck that into an edit and start working with it. Now, it may be that then I would go, oh, actually, wouldn't it be nice if we panned with him? And, you know, things like that. But to start with, that's a perfectly acceptable, the most simple, basic version of this shot is that. So, rule 2, starting and stopping is part of the story. The default motion should be the camera is in motion, not starting or stopping. Now, when you animate something in computer graphics, usually the default curves will be set to auto, right? So these are, let's just take a look at this red one. So that's a linear move. Usually they'll be set to auto and they'll look like that, which means that it will move off. Part of the story here now is that him walking motivates the camera. That's part of the story. Now that's fine if that's the choice. If that's your choice, great. But by default, probably you're going to cut a shot like this, you're going to cut in at a certain point inside it, right? And so you want to maintain, a camera should maintain a steady speed. And that means we don't want it to start moving during the shot. Unless you do want that, right? I guess what I'm saying is when you create an animation and by default it looks like this, it will. The first thing you should do is change these keyframes to linear. And it looks like that. Which gets me on to rule number 3. Rule number 3 is 2 keyframes, especially on the horizontal plane, are usually all that you need when you animate a camera. Let me show you. This camera move has got 2 keyframes. You can see it there. But before it, the camera's moving. So there's the first keyframe. And after it, the camera's moving. There's the second keyframe. The camera's moving. Now, why? Well, what I did here was I went and I set a keyframe here, and then I found a similar frame down the line, and I set it there. And the character walks, and we track with him. I've got the curves set to linear. Now, there's a little bug in Unreal Engine. They should look like this. Oh, fuck. They should look like, you see that little glitch? That's a bug in this version of Unreal. I've never seen it do that before, but that's the bit that's flashing on. That's really what they're doing. They're going off on an infinitely. They're going. And so that's my default thing is I find one frame that I like, I find another frame that I like, and I set 2 keyframes, I set them to linear, and then curves, and we can see here we've got pre-infinity and post-infinity. So the first thing I do when I'm making a camera move, the very first thing, because this is going to result in the simplest basic camera, is 2 keyframes, both of which are good, framed nicely, and I set the curves to linear, and I set the post and pre and post infinity settings to infinite, and that gives me an infinite camera move. Now a lot of it will be like none of that's usable, right? But it means that I give the editor the choice. In this case, I'm the editor, but that doesn't really matter. You know, it becomes unusable. You know, once he leaves frame, right? But that's fine. But maybe in the edit they want to hold on that for a bit. You know, like it's perfectly acceptable. I don't know. I want to give the editor as much choice as possible. So that's rule number 3. 2 keyframes for the most part, for the biggest, and especially that horizontal plane. So the X and Y axis in Unreal Engine, X and Z if you've got a Y up piece of software like Maya or something. Rule number 4: camera moves are motivated by the subject of the shot pressuring the edge of the screen. Let me show you. In our first version, that's version 2. In our first version of the shot, this character, by choice, I let him leave the frame. But if we were going to follow him, we would start doing it as he approaches the edge of frame. So I've changed this camera to the cinematic viewport, and I've added a grid of thirds. So the grid of thirds is really useful. Let's see. So watch where he is on screen right, he's in the middle, right, broadly in the middle. He's slightly favouring the backside, that's fine. And we feel like he needs to motivate the camera once he comes significantly past this line of thirds, right? This third line here. When he gets past that, we feel like actually the camera needs to pan to follow him. It needs to come around. It needs to, you know. So that's when we know we have to actually add some keyframes in, right? So in version 3, that's what happens now. So we go, and he comes, and he gets to here, look, and he's pushed it, and then we go with him. Now, actually, to be fair, I don't dislike it. He gets a little bit close to the edge for me, like he's actually clipping the edge. I might change that. I might do it now. But it doesn't bother me too much. It's not necessarily a choice. It's more like it's just kind of happened. It's in the animation. But really, you know, I could take these curves and I could just bring these round a touch, just so that he doesn't quite get so close to the edge of screen, but he's still pushing it here, and then it goes with him. Now remember, if something moves really fast, it can leave the frame. If you have something, we shot a rocket from here, we didn't know the camera doesn't know, because the camera's at us, we didn't know what was going to happen. The rocket shoots up. It's fine. It can leave frame, and then we have to whip up to catch it, and that's fine. It's still being motivated. It's just it demonstrates the speed that things are moving at, right? So the faster they're moving, the closer to the frame, the edge of frame they're going to get. He's not moving very fast. He doesn't matter. Like, so we've got plenty of time to consider as a cameraman, a virtual cameraman, that we're allowing him to push the edge of frame, and we're going to come around and catch him and keep going. But if he was running and he just burst into a run and we didn't know, he's going to nearly leave frame, and then we're going to have to whip to catch him up. But all that time, we're still pressuring the edge of frame to push, right? And the faster we move, the more pressure is applied. We go further past the edge of frame, and then we have to whip the camera move has to be faster to catch it. And that's the only time that a camera should speed up. That's kind of a sub-rule, I think, it seems. Rule number 5, empty frames are your friend. If a character is leaving frame, let them. Make sure you don't, stop rendering before he's left the frame, or she has left before they've left the frame. But if a character is entering the frame, what's framed needs to be part of the story. Ideally, when a character leaves the frame, the what's left inside the frame should be part of the story. What we're basically saying is, if a character is moving through the frame and it looks like they're going to leave it eventually, let that shot roll till it leaves. Empty frames can be part of the story, but they can't be entirely empty. They can be empty of that subject, but then the subject might be something else, and we should be kind of looking at it. Now, why might we want to leave the frame empty? Well, look, here's the thing. I can't get many different kinds of shots in that trench, right? You can see how tight the space is. So whatever I cut back to next is probably going to be a shot not too dissimilar from this, because I can't really get any more shots. Those are the only kind of ones I could get. You can't cut from that to that, okay? It's too similar. The compositions are nearly the same. The shapes are the same. He's the same size in frame. So in order to cut from this to this, if I wasn't going to do it in one move, I want to let him leave the frame. And so that's what he does here. He leaves the frame, and that allows me the space then on my next shot. I could come to a shot that looks like, I could come to a shot that pulls with him. Where's he gone? I come to a shot that's pulling with him. Right, so we might have a shot that's a bit like this, where we're pulling with him. Or we might be, whoops, I'm not going to do that. We might be pushing with him. So we might be coming like this. But either way, what we've not done is we can match this. We can go back to this composition as long as we let him leave the frame first. It gives us a fresh composition without a cut, so that we can then go back to effectively the same composition, because really I can't get very many compositions in this trench. So that's why we might let him leave and leave an empty frame. But generally speaking, we wouldn't open on this and then feel him come into it, because we're not filming anything. Unless we are, unless we were shooting, maybe we're looking at this, you know. We've got a little sign in that says front line. There's no reason why the camera can't be looking at it and kind of coming past. And then here comes a figure in the frame, and then we speed up and we go with them, right? But we're not just arbitrarily shooting nothing and letting a character walk in, because then we're suggesting that we're expecting that character to walk into that frame. So always think about the psychology of what it is that you're expecting to happen in the shot, right? So hopefully that helped and is of use. I'll be creating shots for this film, for the previs for this film. This is going to be my live action film, and I'll be doing some more of this stuff and posting about it in the coming days and weeks. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment and all that stuff, and I will talk to you down the line.